2024, and we're gonna start the Facilities Committee for February 24th. So the first thing on the agenda is the bridge and the disposal of, item agenda 1 is disposal of surplus authority, public bid.
John's
John's gonna talk
pretty
about that.
well versed in all of this, so he can take you through it.
Yep, so as you will recall, I think you approved this already with, there was the general discussion about the 50 acres that included this 11.59 acre parcel. But since we're now at this step, we thought we'd bring it to you again before we actually proceeded. So as you recall, it's an 11.59 acre parcel of land at the intersection of 37 and Trooper Sean W. Snow Street. We call it the Bridge Approach parcel. The authorities owned it since the early 50s. You hired a broker, higher fee than what the appraised value was, the appraisal you had done. With no action, you lowered the price down to the appraised value, which is $140,000. And still with no action over the past, I guess, year and a half. Staff is now recommending that, it be sold through public bid process to the highest bidder. The minimum price would be the $140,000 fair market appraised value. And this complies with the Public Authority Accountabilities Act and the authority's policy for the disposition of property guidelines. And that, I looked at this in a problem. So we would commence the advertising quickly. We do some advertising as much as we have budgeted at the Watertown, North Country now. And I think it would be a good idea to place some ads up in Ottawa and maybe Syracuse or wherever. But I have developed that and start those. And then the auction would be held publicly on June 2nd.
We have to wait that long, sir?
No, no, but, it's also a function of getting word out and getting people talking about it, and having them time to, evaluate it, and,
Put together a business plan.
yeah, and get together like daily averages for traffic on 37 and how much bridge traffic, do you have water, sewer, can you access it off the Proctor, you can off the other two sides. Do all that due diligence and, grab a survey and yeah, so that's the idea behind it.
John, too, we have been through this process on the Waddington properties, you did mention that.
Yep.
All those, they were
Over a
Riverside.
dozen.
They were Riverside, and I think the highest bidder got his chance at as many properties as they wanted at a certain price, and then it went right down through to where we got rid of all of those properties, and the sales, after I think 4 or 5 months, everything was completed. It came out pretty well for us. This isn't quite the same type of property, but we did go through the same process and came up with the idea of, because they were up for sale for a long time with just like the same thing that John did on that property. So there is a precedence of what we do. We could go back and look at that to make sure we cover all our bases for going out to the auction bid process.
Yeah, it's based on that.
Yeah. Oh, it is?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do we have any option on setting that minimum bid? Or are we required to use the appraised value?
I think you could go lower if it was unsuccessful. I mean, I guess you could go lower, you're offering at appraised value. And then you could, I think in Waddington, actually, they held a second public auction for the ones that didn't go.
Off the
and
river.
then they lowered it, the ones that weren't as popular.
Well, help me understand, why would we expect any bids if it's been for sale at the appraised value for a long time?
Well, this is a little different, you know, it's been listed with the broker. This would be, yeah, like a public bid, so it says, you know, there's a certain timeline to, you know, actually get your pricing. It's for sale, here's the opportunity, so, it may not, Chris, I don't know.
So if it, we don't get a bid of $140,000 this time, can we at that point accept the next highest bid, or do we go out again?
There won't be a next highest bid if you're setting the minimum at
That's-
140.
Well, that's, yeah,
If I,
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that the best way to proceed is to
there'd be another option.
try this, and then if that, you know, if it's not, then you have a justification for going
Okay.
lower, just to make sure we're okay with the
Okay.
policy.
Right, okay, good.
Well, I'm very
Right.
willing to follow a recommendation from you.
Mhm.
So you have a motion?
I would move that we approve the dispersal of surplus authority property.
Which was already approved, correct? So we're just
Yeah.
reaffirming that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
I will second that.
Okay. All right, no more discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then the other parcels that you approved and that we talked about, those would require more work in terms of actually doing a survey, subdividing, having Frank review them for easements for like the walking trail and things like that. And some money to do those things, so.
Has there been any talk about the old beach property, has anybody asked about that?
There was interest in renting it.
Oh, renting.
Yeah. Well, it's just a conversation with a couple of business people that said,
Mhm.
you know, it's pretty, it's kind of a neat amphitheater,
Hmm.
almost. But your preference at the time was for a sale.
So we have to bring in the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. We're on tour.
What's wrong with that?
It's not that big. It would be kind of neat for like, I mean, if someone were to rent it, they're, you know, for recreational purposes, like, you know, use the old concession stand, run it as a beach, charge a fee,
Oh, really?
you have rentals and things, you know, it has potential, so
Mhm.
that's why we looked at that. But your preference at the time was for a sale, so. And that comes with challenges too, because I think the gazebo that's out there that was part of the trail, was part of the same grant, so that's
Different funding?
federal funds, and there may be like, may not be able to dispose of it that way, because it
Right.
was federal funds. So someone needs to review that whole grant if you're not, if you're including it with the sale.
Right.
But as time progresses here and I have time, I'll continue working on those if that's what you'd like me to do.
Well, see what happens out here.
Sure. This is a good step forward.
Yeah?
Okay. Item 2, update on the Tiger Grant project.
Okay, I placed this on the Facilities Committee meeting agenda because I wanted to update you on what I will be doing is in March, I'll be coming to you with a resolution to accept the grant agreement that we have with New York State and the federal FHWA monies, but I also want to summarize the funding for that so that it's in a white paper here, so I just want to review the high points of that. Like I said, the white paper was prepared with the grant agreement because there's additional funds. It's not as simple, we're not just doing the Tiger grant, where New York State is throwing in, or putting a lot of money into the project. so that, we're doing more than just the Tiger grant, which, if you recall, the Tiger grant was for rehabilitation of the first 8 spans of the US side of the bridge, and that included repainting and repairing floor beams, not redoing the decking or removing the sidewalk, but that was the project that was, we submitted, I believe it was 2 years ago. And the thing with that is, that's in, the funding and getting that money is all in stone. We can't change what we want to do. So you may look at this and say, well, why are we doing this and why are we doing that? Well, really, we're driven by what we did for our Tiger grant. So we were lucky enough to get more funding from the state to help us out with that. So with the state, with their monies, they're going to cover our share of the Tiger grant, which was $2.1 million. They're putting that in, and you'll see at the very last line above that first chart, it said, OBPA has requested to use the state funds for the Tiger match rather than their funds, so that they may use their local funds on a possible future work in Canada. NISDOT has agreed to provide the state funds for the Tiger match. So we're all set with the Tiger funding, and then we're gonna be doing more work from piers 8 through 14, which will be replacing the deck, repainting, and taking out the sidewalks. So as you know, in the suspension span, there's no sidewalks and there's new decking. Well, coming back toward the US side, 8 piers, that will all look just like the expansion, the suspension span.
Let me point it out here, Mayor. So is that from?
Yeah, right there,
Here
to there, yes. And then going back to the other part would be the Tiger grant part. And when we say, thanks, John, and when we say possible future work in Canada, there's a lot of things that you have to, the US federal funds can't be used on a foreign territory. So that any of the Tiger grant money or any federal funds, that can't go beyond the border on the actual US. It has to be spent on the US side.
Where the US flag is.
Exactly. With the New York State, some of that, we did in 2010, we expended money on the Canadian side. That can be done, but given the time frame with all of this, New York State stepped up and said, we'll keep everything on the US side and take care of your match, but we need a commitment from the bridge and port. When we have 2.1, we can spend it anywhere on that bridge we want. So the idea would be, that would be kind of seed money for taking care of the Canadian approach. And you see in there it says future use. That helps us right now very much. We're able to take care of the US side in a year and a half. That'll be up to snuff. Not perfect, because some of those are just, some will replace floor beams in the truss section that John just showed you, but on the US approach side, that's just floor beam repair. That'll buy us time until we decide to take the deck off and put new floor beams in, but that's kind of the best we could do with time and what we have out there. It also takes a great burden off our maintenance people. We can concentrate all our work for the next year and a half on the Canadian side, and we can split off and start with the piers. So to go back to what happened to us at the end of last season when you were flag, we can address those emergency. Very beginning of this year is address those areas that need to be done and be ready to go, because we do have a bridge inspection this year, biennial, so that we don't want to be in that same situation. But on the US side, we'll have contractors out there working, or one contractor working that. I would imagine if things go well by June or July, and they'll work up until maybe October or November, then they'll come back and have the whole working season next year working on just that US part up to the suspension span. So basically, I want to just give you a summary of what this grant is all about, so that you understand here that The only issue that may come up is construction inspection, maybe our cost. And that's a percentage of that. It can be, could be quite a number, like, percentage-wise of the project. But you need that interface with your engineers and the construction inspection to take care of any issues that may come out there. The firm that we had did the work in 2010, so they're very familiar with the bridge, and anything that we see will probably be in the same category, unless there's something unusual out there, but it's a known quantity. It's not like you're digging down and you find something or anything like that. It'll just be a matter of maybe things don't jive with drawings and things like that, that they'll have to interpret, or they'll have to keep the contractor on schedule. The one thing we do know is that on that approach, the beams on that 9 through 14, the beams go back and forth. So this year, or in 2010, on the suspension span went this way, so we were able to just give one lane and go back in. Well, this case, they may have to shut the bridge down from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, and just replacing as you go along. So there may be an issue where the bridge will be closed just for construction. That'll be a means and method thing that we'll talk with the contractor on, but they'll all be made aware of what they can and can't do. And then they're made aware of all the holidays and what kind of maintenance and protection of traffic they use, so that they don't cause any kind of undue burden on us operating the bridge, trying to, we don't want to lose revenue either, but some of this isn't necessary, so. I just wanted to, if you read that over, it's pretty, it's plain enough to, sometimes some of these grants and things get pretty wordy, so I thought this was a good way to introduce you to. So I will have a resolution for the March meeting. I've got it pretty well, I've got everything done. Frank's looked at the grant, so it should be ready to go, and the sooner I can get it to the state, the sooner we'll get it prepared for bid and things like that.
So we can start it this year.
Of course, yeah. The only, I do caution you, the one thing, the Attorney General, the state of New York has to review the contract and the grant. And I know there was a bit of an issue just because of time and what they were doing, that it didn't go as, I think we had it in there for a 4 or 6 week review. And I think it bumped out to 8 or 10 weeks. But so as not to affect the construction season, that's why I'm trying to get everything back to them, and some way they can turn that around. But so far, we're on schedule for everything with design and all of that. So, and we've been through it before. We're pretty much, we have an idea of what to expect with that. We have a laydown area that was paid for in the last one, so there's some added costs that contractor won't need. We're just giving that laydown yard, and that was part of the reason we I think we spent close to $200,000 or $300,000 putting all that stone and fencing that off, but that's an added thing. Any questions on that?
Well, that was really good. Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
You're not looking for any action on that?
No, I just wanted to let you know that will be coming at you, and if you got any more things that come, use that white paper as a guide on there, and I can answer anything that might come up from that.
All right. You guys all set with that?
I'm all set.
Okay, agenda B1, port expand, bridge expansion.
Have you had a chance to look this over? Most of you, have you? What it is we're at the point where we have to make a commitment, and I brought this up at the board meeting, that if we can't make a commitment, then the funds that were designated for this project can't be guaranteed to us. So that going forward, if we keep going the way we're going without a commitment on our part, we could finally get the money, but then on the dredging end and the commitments from the feds, the money may not be there. As you can see, there's an enormous ask of us to make the project go forward. And I'm recommending that we terminate the project. And you can see on there, you can see the numbers and what's required based on our financial situation. There's no way that we can meet that ask without an enormous amount of help. I think in funding wise, we're somewhere about a $10 million grant from the state, and then we have $940 from the Economic Regional Development, and we do have a smaller grant from the New York State DEC. But when you add all that up, we need $18.9 million to do our share of the project. And that includes the dock expansion, which in here they call them all betterments. So the cost of the deepening is $6.145, and our share of that is $2.1 million. That's our share of that. And then on the OBPA betterments, the dock wall extension, our betterment is roughly estimated to be 16.8. And then there's a deepening of the area transition between the dredging and the dock wall is on us, it's not part of the dredging. So there's an added cost in there of $3 million for that. So there's three areas there. One's, we need money for the dredging, we need our share for the dock extension, and then for the deepening of the berthing area and embankment removal, there's another $3.6 million. And that brings us, as I said, basically $19 million. And just with where we are right now and our needs on the bridge and other things, and also just to have editorial comment, just because we have some funding, my own personal belief is we can't just go after something just because we hate to turn that money away. But I've talked to John, there may be some way that we could talk about repurposing that to something that we can manage. But I don't enjoy coming to you saying we want to turn this around or terminate it, but I just think a hard decision has to be made, and that to just try to go along based on where we are right now just doesn't seem like the prudent thing to do. But I just want to give you the whole summary right there. That's the latest quarterly summary of where we're at.
I absolutely support cutting back the vision. We have to somehow be able to encompass and do well what we do.
Right. Yeah, you might say, do your knitting, do the things that you do well.
That's right.
I don't like being in that position. I mean, I would like to
Sure.
take on things like that, but I just think just adding everything up, it just doesn't, it just doesn't make sense.
We can still get ships in at the port. We can still conduct business at the port. There's no way we can come up with 18.9 million, and I would rather put money into repairing the bridge and not strapping us with additional debt down to port.
Right. Just the debt that we take on, we couldn't manage at this point.
No.
100% agree.
Well, you're kind of quiet there.
It just seems very common sense to me.
So what I will be doing is putting together a resolution, so officially that the resolution and notification to the Corps of Engineers. Also, I did want to mention, you've asked me before, and I might have misquoted, but we have spent $215,000 in engineering and planning so far. That's gotten us quite a bit, with design. I don't know if you ever pull that off the shelf, but I doubt it would do you any good in 5 or 10 years. You'd have to probably revisit all that, but that would be money that we've invested in the last 4 to 5 years with the Corps of Engineers to keep this moving. And I just wanted to make you aware of that we did put that kind of money into it.
Wish we had it now.
Sure. Yeah.
And I've gone through with what I understood of the project and various grants and had initial discussions. I went to the budget presentation in Watertown and talked to some folks there about reprogramming some of those funds, and some of it's positive, some of it's negative, and there's still the question there about 18 million that was announced in August and 17.3. I have someone looking into that. I know you're looking into that as well, but I can give you an update probably in my board report or for the next board meeting on that.
Well, I think it'd be wonderful if we were able to retain any of the state money, for instance, for other purposes. I think goodness knows that from my point of view, this would be money well spent by the state for this region. But I think above all, that just communicating to our state representatives and the people in the state administration, let them know where we stand so that they realize that we're able to say no and have to say no on a project.
As much as we hate to,
Yeah.
it's the right thing to do.
Thanks for the report.
Okay.
Okay, that'll bring us to the airport and the discussion items there. Is you up, Stephanie?
Yes. At the board meeting, McFarland Johnson came out and spoke a little bit about the grants that are upcoming. And I wanted to give you a little bit more detail on that. In particular, the second round of the grants for the upstate, the proposed 100 million that seems to be the talk of the town right now. I think we need to plan and know which direction we really want to go. So if we do apply for any of these grants, we are not throwing good money after bad. So a brief overview here. We've talked about the $1 million FAA entitlement grant. We have already put in for that for snow removal equipment. We're getting ready to go out to bid. These are the types of equipment that we are trying to go out to bid for. We feel these are the most appropriate pieces of equipment for us. Good snow removal equipment will last 20 years if it's maintained properly, since it is used year-round. We feel these are the best pieces of equipment to best utilize our folks and for what we have as far as runway length and cleaning capacity. And it is a carrier vehicle, what they call the truck part, with a 20-foot plow and a dump bed. And it would be attached to it would be a tow behind runway broom, and that's a 20-foot broom. A second carrier vehicle, which is another dump truck, it would have a 20-foot plow with an undermount plow and a solid material spreader. Could either work for sand or chemical. A loader is critical in order to load this kind of material, and the separate attachments, we would absolutely need a bucket and the forks to load our materials, but a snow scoop would help tremendously on the ramps, and a snow blower would be excellent, but these would be add alternates because I don't know we can purchase all of this for about $1 million. So it would be in that order that I've listed that we would bid these. Now, the New York State DOT grant was announced at lunchtime today. There is $10 million available from the state in as high as $1.5 million increments. The caveat there is we have to have this ready for the 5th of May. Things that we can use this for are pickup trucks and plows for snow removal, mowing equipment, tractors and attachments. I believe, I'm not 100% certain, we could use it for backup generators that we are in need of at the airport, and fuel farms,
So if you had mowing equipment, you wouldn't need to steal Steve's?
pretty much.
Yep.
That's the way it would work. Same with loaders and plows.
Yep.
Pretty much all of it.
And all that kind of stuff, yes. And as I said, that was just announced at noon today, so I found out that it was 10 millions with maximum of 1.5 million.
You
Now,
have time to put that together?
you bet we will.
Good.
Now, the last, the upstate, I'm calling them the upstate grants, it's the second portion, the 100 million.
Mhm.
This is where we need to decide on what direction we want to take as far as the airport goes. I don't want to throw good money after bad. I would prefer, in my estimation, infrastructure and purchasing or building things that will take us forward in the long run. They traditionally like something that the public can see. A terminal expansion, first of all, would be more expensive than I think what they are willing to dish out at this particular time. And in my opinion, I don't think we need a brand new terminal. I think we could make modifications that would enhance our commercial aviation. The infrastructure for a terminal, but also an FBO would be great. Right now, well, the airport has two functions: to provide economic growth in an area, and that's usually done by commercial aviation. But airports cannot generate very much revenue from that. That's a benefit to the economic community, to the entire community. The FBO, although that is an economic generator, it provides more income to the airport itself. In past years, an FBO, or fixed-based operator, was operated by an independent company. In the last 5 to 10 years, you've seen a big switch for small to medium airports to take over that function themselves in order to capture more of that income. Infrastructure to put in an FBO, I think would go a long way. Now, that's my opinion, but the master plans are showing a new fixed-based operator facility on the same side of the runway as the terminal building now. So infrastructure moving into the FBO building would also help with the expansion of the terminal building in the future.
You know where those plans are?
The plans?
Yeah, Wade had them, those engineering plans, Wade had them in his office at one point.
I have some, not with me, but
You know where they are here? If you don't.
I know what you're talking about, but they weren't there. I know, it's got that, there's like 2 alternates.
Yep.
One has the FBO
Yep.
way down by 68.
Yep,
And then the other one shows the terminal and the, go ahead, keep talking, I think. I might-
if you do, it just makes it easier.
Yeah, I think it's on a whiteboard, yep.
But this is something this is a board decision, how, if we choose to go for that money, I think we ought to think it through. General aviation opportunities, as I said, more GA folks, or more airports are taking that over. Our operations GA have increased, but not to the point where we're really making a lot of money, but we are limited on what we can do. We don't have a fixed-based operator building that is conducive to the bigger jets. We don't have the facilities to maintain these aircraft when they come on the ground. These things are eligible for the grant funding. And I think once again, infrastructure to start slow and build that. Part of it, a good comment was made the other day by one of the staff members. We're not getting any more GA traffic because they know our limitations. If we did not have these limitations, we could move further. An example was the arena dedication at St. Lawrence University. That particular weekend, we had 4 nice-sized aircraft. The ramp was crowded. All 4 aircraft left because there was no hangar space or ground power units to keep them heated. Some left and flew back. I found out that some went to Watertown because they have the heated hangars to hangar their aircraft. So once word gets out, and word is getting out, the staff out there is extremely friendly. We don't have a lot to offer but in physical things, but we are, the staff is extremely friendly and helpful, and we get more and more compliments on the staff and assurances, and we're starting to see the repeat business, that folks are coming back. I think that's an opportunity for revenue generation for the airport itself, but also for the community. Ogdensburg is now getting the big tournament this coming year. I know a lot of those folks drive, but you have other folks who would be flying in, possibly on small aircraft, private aircraft. And I just think that we have to think about the opportunities that we want to try and capture. Now, as far as commercial aviation goes, we have the EAS program, the Essential Air Service Program.